greatest NFL player of all time.
Well, we'll certainly let folks who like to debate those things. There's people far more talented than I am in debating those things. We'll let them debate that. But listen, it is hard to argue with 7 Super Bowl championships, 5 Super Bowl MVPs, virtually every passing record, 335 games played, whatever number you want to throw out there. He's at the top or near the top of every offensive statistical category there is, and a winner, and the longevity. There's plenty of boxes you can check on the side of the ledger that says greatest of all time for sure.
Right.
I would think so. The selection process involves, right now we have 49 selectors, so it's not anybody with the hall. These are 49 mostly active journalists from around the country. They meet and consider the candidacies, and each person who's up for election has a presenter who presents the case for the person under consideration. And the debate might last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20. There's been debates on candidates that have gone into the 25, 30-minute range when you really are starting to weigh this person against that person. In the past, and I think it may have started with Brett Favre, Brett's presenter stood up and said 2 words, Brett Favre, and sat back down. And it happened again with Peyton Manning. Peyton's presenter was Mike Chappell, a selector from Indianapolis. He stood up, said, Peyton Manning, sat down. And I'm pretty sure that whoever is the presenter for Tom Brady will take a similar approach. They'll just say, Tom Brady, sit down, and let the rest of the selectors try to make an argument why Tom Brady shouldn't be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Listen, nothing can ever be assumed, but it's probably a pretty good bet.
8 months like for him.
Yeah, it's a whirlwind, and we tell the respective class members, we've done it for class of 21, 22 here, recently. Class of 23 will be announced on February 9th at honors, as you said. And that time from February to August is going to go really quickly for them. They'll, at the Super Bowl in Phoenix this year, the class of 2023 will get sized for their gold jacket. They'll get sized for their K Jewelers Ring of Excellence. They'll get measured for their bust by the artisans who will create their bronze bust. Over the next several weeks, they'll probably make a couple of visits either out to the studio where the busts are molded, or have the artist come see them somewhere, take additional measurements, talk with them about what they want that bust to look like. Do they want it to look like, not to joke about it, but somebody who had a career as long as Tom Brady's, he didn't look, he looked similar, but not exactly the same in year 23 as he did in year 1 or 2. The hair was a little different. The body type was a little bit different. The facial structure changed a little bit. And, what does Tom want himself to look like in that bust? Does he want to look like, the 2004 Tom Brady, or does he want to look like the 2022 or 23 Tom Brady? Facial hair and all that. So they'll go through all of that. They'll make some site visits to Canton and see where they'll be preserved in history. We will ask them to send us some artifacts to include in their locker exhibit. That's part of what is on display here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So there's a lot that happens between, February and late July, early August to get them ready. And again, there's, just like if a team's making the Super Bowl, Tom thinks he has a lot of friends, and he does, and he's going to find out he has even more than he realized when, summer of 2028 starts to roll around and people want tickets. So, getting tickets and travel all arranged is just another big thing, just like it is for, the Eagles and the Chiefs right now who are getting ready to play in the Super Bowl.
Tom Brady still has to wait like everybody else.
Even Tom Brady has to wait. Even Peyton Manning had to wait. There's some others that we can assume, will be or would have been first ballot types of people. Peyton Manning being one that I mentioned. The same conversation kind of came up with him. You've got a couple of guys out there whose clocks are running. A Larry Fitzgerald, let's say, a Drew Brees. I think many people assume they'll be first ballot guys. It's just something the Hall doesn't want to do, because then you've created a precedent. You've established a line. Who who's next and who's making that determination that they're first ballot guys. You just let it play itself out. It's also, in a way, unfair to the people who are queued up right now to be parts of the class of 2024. If Tom were to have the 5-year mandatory waiting period waived, then he's really knocking someone else out of the class of 2024 who has, who would be a first year eligible in that class or who has been waiting to get in. And we have many players who are on their second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th year of eligibility who've gone through that waiting period and, now are looking towards the class of 2023. If they don't get in that, then they're up for the class of 2024. And all of a sudden you're just saying, well, we're going to let somebody jump that line. Well, now you've displaced somebody else who's gone through the process the way the bylaws are written. So it's not going to happen.
Awesome. And then just quick comes out, just kind of go through that real quickly.
Sure, I can do that for sure. So what ends up happening each year is we put out a preliminary list. And we give that to the selectors, a first preliminary list. We ask them to review it. And we ask our selectors to look for any omissions. Somebody who, someone needs to be formally nominated to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, if they've reached a certain point in earlier years, they automatically go on to the following year's preliminary list. But you've got some other people who, don't reach the semifinalist stage, let's say. They need to be renominated every year, and that can be done by anybody. It can be done by you, by me, by a coach, by the person themselves. They just contact the Pro Football Hall of Fame and they can say, hey, I just want to be sure that Tom Brady's nominated for the class of 2028. And we do that, and the selectors look at those preliminary lists. And after they've done that 3 times, again, to make sure that we haven't omitted anybody who should be under consideration, then the selectors will vote that list down. And it usually runs in about 120 to 130 names at the beginning. They'll vote that down to 25 semifinalists. Then they'll get that list back and have a few weeks to a month to consider that list and then vote it down again to 15. And those are what we call the finalists for each year. And then they have another month or 6 weeks or so to consider those names, because that's the working list of modern era players that they'll consider then for election to the subsequent class. Now, that is all just within the modern era player category. There are separate categories for senior players and separate categories for coaches and contributors, but it works in the same way. It's just those are just smaller lists.
Yeah, and then